Joe, I guess would you just introduce us to mothing then?
Sure. Um, yeah, how do we get introduced to mothing? Well, I think, the first thing is recognizing the differences between butterflies and moths. Um, and generally, moths are more active at night, butterflies during the day. Butterflies all have clubs at the end of their antenna. They're called flagellum, and moths do not have those. So if you're wondering if something is a moth or a butterfly, just take a close look at those antennae and you'll be able to tell. And the third thing um, is that the moths' wings are hooked together. So both butterflies and moths, they both have two sets of wings, so four total. And and moths, they're hooked together. That's what gives them the erratic flight. Whereas butterflies, since all those wings are moving independently, they kind of look more graceful, I think. Um, and while butterflies get a lot more attention, um, moths are way more diverse. And so what I wanted to do first is, a moth just flew by my screen. Good sign. Um, so what I want to do first is just to show a few photos from our BioBlitz. There is this amazing woman named Diane Brooks who, you might recognize her name if you belong to the Mothing Ohio Facebook page. But she's just a self-taught expert, and if you really want to know about an advanced setup and everything, and like really good field guides, she would be a great reference. But I'm just going to show you kind of like the end result of a good mothing setup. So I'm going to share my screen and just kind of take you guys through what the BioBlitz is and why it matters, and some of the mods we've seen on here. So this is using a platform called iNaturalist. Is anybody already familiar with this and using it already? Okay, well, it's a great resource. If you take a picture of anything that's alive and put it on there, either using the app or the website, it will help you identify what it is. Not just it as in technology, but other people who use iNaturalist help you identify it. So it's kind of a neat online community of naturalists. And we are using it to try and determine all the species present on the Wayne National Forest on the Athens unit. So this is just the dashboard here. You can see that 366 people have submitted 13,472 observations, which is documenting approximately 3,157 species, although some of those are unverified, so that number is kind of always in flux a little bit. And then 1,354 people have helped identify things. So that's just kind of the overview of this. And then if you want to get more in depth, you can click on the lightning stats tab. And I really like this, looking at this pie graph here. So of those 3,157 species, guess how many are insects?
Moths.
Yes, you're correct. To be exact, 1,674, which is over 50% of the total. Actually,
That's pretty cool to stop and think about for a second. But more than half of the species people have found in the woods are insects. Like, think about what that means for how central they must be to how everything works. They're often the last thing we pay attention to.
exactly. And so we have 773 plant species documented. We probably could should have 1,000 by the time we've sampled everything, I guess. So even that would not come close to the total of insect species, which I find really fascinating. Because when you think about butterflies, it's like every butterfly pretty much has its own host plant.
Can you go back? I want to take a screenshot of it.
Absolutely. To this one?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I got it.
I heard it. And you can like click these observations to fave them if you want to list them as your favorites. So these are the ones that have gotten
So cool.
favorites, and you'll see quite a few moths in there. So yeah, we got a little bit of everything in here. But before I get too distracted and talk about something else, we better keep getting more specific. Okay, so I just went down to all the insect species. However, we can get more specific, and we'll just go to So of the insect species, butterflies and moths make up 1,281 of those species. And the butterflies, like maybe 80. Let's just give them 80. So we're talking about 1,200 species of moths. And the crazy thing is, this is not necessarily exceptional to the eastern United States. If you're around any sort of intact, healthy forests, you probably have about this many species, within reach, which is just incredible. So these are pretty much all Diane's photos. You can see some of them are on white sheet, and she's got a black light set up. She's got a really nice camera that takes close-up photos. And then a lot of her photos are also against brick. So like, click on this dusky groundling.
So just for a second, Diane is just a volunteer who has trained herself to become an expert in moths because she's really into it. And she has probably found 30 or 40% of all of the observations in the whole BioBlitz. So it's not necessarily that moths are the most common insect out there. It's that Diane has really devoted herself just where she lives to finding all of these. And that's kind of amazing. Like, she sets up just the right settings to attract them and look for them. So if you really got excited about finding something too, you could have this huge impact that this one person has had on our whole scientific collection.
Yeah, and moths are more generalist in terms of the host plants, like the caterpillars. A lot of them will eat the leaves of anything, or some of them it's like they'll eat any type of oak or beech tree. Some of them is like anything related to cherries, or anything in the aster family in terms of herbaceous plants. So it's not, they usually don't have as specific host plants as butterflies, but some of them do. And the point I'm trying to come to here is Diane has worked really hard, not just to identify the moths, but also to plant as many different types of native plants in her yard as possible. And so somebody mentioned this earlier, but like, even thinking about the specific plant that one of these species might need for their host plant or part of their life cycle, she tries to plant it. So we're just kind of getting started with that here. Sarah and I are trying to plant as many things as we can and see what happens. But I just wanted to show a few of the showier moths for sure. The biggest moths are almost all of them are in the silk moth family. And they're big, showy. It's like almost the size of a slice of pizza. And the males have these feathery antennae, and they can detect the pheromones of females from miles away with these feathery antennae. It's really remarkable. Sorry, my computer's jiggling. The mosquitoes are eating my ankles. And these moths, I don't believe they eat at all as adults. They spend most of their life cycle as caterpillars and as pupa, and then their main task as adults is to mate, lay eggs, and make more of their kind. And then this,
Yeah, that is, I think, one of the craziest things about moths is a lot of them don't even have mouths in their adult form. They do all their eating as caterpillar, hence the very hungry caterpillar, and don't worry about anything but making eggs when they're adults.
yeah, and it's stunning, like what beauty emerges from that effort. Have to look like this Luna moth, necessarily to successfully breed, but they do, and I think that's kind of miraculous. But this is maybe our most famous moth. This is the Luna moth, and as you can see, that's another male with the big feathery antenna there. But they're, they kind of stand out. They're bright lime green, the long tails here, some eye spots. So it's usually like maybe sometimes the first moth that people notice is the Luna moth. Just go through a few more of these, and then show you guys a couple things you could do at your houses. This is this is another big silkworm moth, the Polyphemus moth. They're kind of more narrow than the other silk moths, but these eye spots are just amazing. And so their goal is to make potential predators think that they are some kind of, be a flying squirrel or sometimes a snake, something that's bigger than they are, with eyes that could potentially harm whatever is preying on them. So it's a defense, kind of an offensive defense mechanism. So then I'd like to find just a couple more to show.
Joe, you went past the rosy maple moth, which made me think of a time I saw it once, and it was just sitting on a railing, and it was just like vibrating, like almost buzzing. Do you know why a moth might do that?
Was it in the morning?
I don't remember. It was probably daytime.
Yeah, I think sometimes they'll do that to kind of warm up their wings in the morning first thing so they can take off and fly. But I don't know. There could be other things too. It could be part of egg laying or sending out the pheromones. Maybe shaking like that helps. That's a good question though.
Some good things to investigate. Thanks for the ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, the rosy maple. And that's, a little bit smaller, maybe, if you're familiar with butterflies, like more the size of a skipper, like maybe the silver-spotted skipper. Okay, I wanted to make sure and show something really tiny as well. This is, and I'm not familiar really with this species. Sometimes if I have extra time, I just like to scroll through Diane's photos, and then I'll just click on the name of the moth, and that'll take you to more information and other photos. Sometimes there's no more information on iNaturalist about these things. This one actually has plenty, so it'll even tell you the host plants, which is shagbark hickory, Caryovata, and Juglans nigra, black walnut. And they mine the leaves of their host plants. So sometimes you can see like little lighter paths on a leaf, and that's from these leaf miners. They're eating the tissue of the leaf without eating through the whole thing. That's how small they're. And I wanted to show this because so many of these moths are out there doing important work in the forest, if you will. And some of the birds that that eat caterpillars, especially in the winter, like the golden crowned kinglet and the black-capped and Carolina chickadees, they're eating a lot of caterpillars of species like this, and their caterpillars can be so small that we can't even see them with our naked eyes. These birds can find them and do.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and she's got a close lens, but this is what you might call a micro moth. So if you hear that phrase, that's what that means.
Carrie asked if only moths are furry or if butterflies can also be furry.
Yeah, butterflies can also be furry, especially the things in the skipper group. They have furry bodies. I'm trying to think of other ones that maybe do. I think most of them kind of look furry if you get a close enough look at them. But it's, since they're flying around, it's tough. But if you can get one in in a bug net or something and take a close look, most of them have some fur on them. Okay, I wanted to find one last. I'll have to show you guys on here. And this is available to you to peruse at your leisure. But the Sphinx moths are among my favorites. There's a lot of different species of Sphinx moths, and that's a good one. But I'm gonna narrow our search up here. Yeah, Sphinx moths. So they got a whole family. And we have 23 species documented in the BioBlitz. So if you have tomato hornworms in your garden, they're part of this family.
Huh.
So Sarah and I just had an argument about whether or not to let them live or not. Do we spare tomatoes or do we let the moths do their thing?
I love the ones that look like hummingbirds and bees or like dead bits of bark.
Yeah, exactly. They're so cool. Yes, the hummingbird clearwing it looks like a hummingbird at first glance, and it does fly during the day. That if you have like bee balm in your yard, they really love visiting bee balm. And then there are smaller ones, smaller clearwing moths that look like bumblebees, but if you get a good look at them, you can tell they're actually moths. So I mean, look at these caterpillars; it's just stunning. These are the shapes of our forest, and it's not like Ohio's the Grand Canyon or anything where you look across. I mean, first of all, you can't really get that great of a look very, very far across the landscape because the forest is so thick and we don't have a lot of overlooks. So it's like, I feel like instead of a grand vista, we have little secret beauty pockets pretty much everywhere you look. And this is one of them right here. So all the hornworm or the sphinx moths as caterpillars, they all have some kind of horn on them. And then their pupa all look the same too. And as we've been talking, there's a little micro moth that landed on my computer screen. So hopefully we do have a little bit of action on the sheet there. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys on the screen here. And then I'm gonna switch to my phone. And I'm gonna have to leave the meeting before I do that so that it doesn't make an awful noise. But Madison might have some crepuscular things to share with you all while I disappear and reappear.
Yeah, go ahead and disappear. Madison had some technical difficulties and left, but go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Does anyone have anything they're wondering about moths in the meantime? Or other insect things?
What happened?
I've been interested in watching the flowers that bloom at night. That seem to have done that as an adaptation just for other pollinators that come out at night, and how often they're white flowers so that they're more visible to attract the moths in. I enjoy seeing those flowers a lot.
Okay. I'm back whenever you guys are ready.
Okay.
So basically here, we just had the porch lights turned on and a white sheet hung from like just the clothesline that we use to dry plants for tea and stuff. So really nothing fancy at all. And some things are starting to show up here. Like this is one of the smaller moths, probably not coming into focus very well. Then you also get things like June beetles that'll come to the night lights. And this, I mean, this just looks like a little dot here, but that is one of the micro moths. So, I mean, you can see how small they are. It's kind of astonishing. And then I'm gonna just step in here and make sure there's nothing on the ceiling or anything. Some flies. Yeah, here's another. That might be a leaf hopper. They have backs kind of shaped like a shed almost. And they suck on plant juices. Okay, and you can see the underside of that, the biggest moth on here, which is still pretty small. But it looks very dark from the other side, and on this side it looks pretty light. So yeah, this is just a really simple setup here. Sarah's got another one in the back I'll show you guys. But kind of on the way back there, I also wanted to show, hopefully it'll work, but this is a blacklight flashlight, and it's something that's really, it's not that expensive and easy to use, and it makes, I'll take it out into the garden here and see if we can find anything, but certain insects and caterpillars will show up and they'll look different colors under the black light, so they're kind of like easier to find. We'll see if maybe that micro moth looks any different. Pretty cool. Does not look that different to me, but also the light is right there. You can definitely see more detail on it.
We're mostly seeing
And
just the shape of it, I think. But oh, the
Okay.
June bug kind of gleams a little differently.
Yeah, look, it looks a little, has a little purple sheen. Okay, well, let's see if we can. Also, I should mention, you can see the crescent moon up there. The best time to do this moth lighting is when there is a new moon, or tonight's a great night because that crescent moon will be setting, pretty shortly, because the moths are coming to the porch light because they use the moon to navigate, and that's probably not the only reason, but that's one explanation of why moths are so driven to the light. Okay, so I'm just gonna, my motion light went off. I'm gonna head back into the darkness, check out Sarah's spot, see if we can find any bugs along the way.
So when you were looking at some of the bugs that look different under the ultraviolet light than they did to our eyes, is that because, are those things that other insects can see? Are those different markings meaningful to animals that can see in the ultraviolet light spectrum?
Yes, exactly. So there's something, you can see it's brighter.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Like you can see, there's that little green dot there. It's probably a tiny insect of some kind. So this is, just a pretty inexpensive, fun tool. That's just bird poop. Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to know how, maybe the chickadees and the golden crown kinglets are using their ultraviolet light vision to pick up on the caterpillars. Just gonna do a little searching as I go here, see if we can find anything. The other night, I actually was able to see one of those leaf miners, and it just looked like a little tiny worm in the leaf, but it glowed really nicely. Spiders usually look pretty cool also. I mean, this is what these flowers look like under the light, which is pretty cool. And this is actually a great flower to be looking at with moths in mind, because they're white and they have long tubular flowers, so they're kind of built for moths. So if you have like big flowers that are white and open at night, long tubes, then you're probably looking at some moth flowers. And just as I'm carrying the flashlight around, there's a lot of bugs that are, like there's a little moth right there trying to find the black light. So, if you really want to do this right, it probably is worth it to invest in a little black light. Okay. So this is Sarah's setup here, and looks like we got a little lightning bug visiting. Their June beetle. This is a kind of a cricket here. I think it's a type of tree cricket. Yeah, lightning bugs are going crazy over this. So, this is just a lamp without the lid on it. So nothing fancy. Do you want to explain the trap? Sure. Get over there.
So this kind of trap is not going to hurt the moths. Actually, it's meant to make them feel more comfortable. So these are the papery kind of egg cartons. And you can see when you layer them in some kind of container, this is a hamper, a laundry basket. You have different amounts of light in these nooks and crannies. So hopefully in the morning, when things have settled, there might be different moths in these, different shades of light.
So they're seeking some shelter. Some of them don't like the bright lights.
Yeah.
Sarah, I wonder if we could try flipping off the light just for a second to see if any of those bugs look different in the black light. I'm ready. It's another dreaming. Yeah, none of these are really glowing. Yeah, maybe it's mostly the caterpillars that glow. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any questions for Sarah about this homemade trap with our laundry hamper?
That's great. So you would leave that until the morning?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it. I think I'm gonna leave this light on all night. The gentleman on the Moth Week videos suggested having a black light or a UV light and also a regular bulb if you're going to be taking pictures because it's hard to get their actual colors in the black light.
Does the black light also attract them, or do you just use that to find them?
I think the black light is they're more attracted to that kind of light. Yeah, this is probably not the best, but we'll see what happens.
This light does disturb the fireflies a little bit, so I wouldn't want to do it every night. But it's Moth Week, and I'm sure they understand.
And Lori says she's used a black light to find tomato hornworms at night, which is a great tip. I wouldn't have thought of if that's when they're more
Did
active.
you check the?
Yeah, they really glow. What's that?
Did you check in there to see if you could see them?
No, but let's do it.
Can we turn this off?
We did. No, it's okay. We did put some tomato hornworm caterpillars in this makeshift greenhouse with what's left of one of our tomatoes in here. But I think they've all already, see, they've totally stripped the tomato plant. I think they've already gone into their pupa stage, so they'll actually burrow into the ground and overwinter as caterpillars.
Five-spotted hawk moth? Is that?
The tomato hornworms?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of them also called the Carolina Sphinx moth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see them in here.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun thing about
That looks like
butterflies and
worm.
caterpillars. They can have totally different names. Ooh, yeah, there's something glowing down there.
Looks like maybe a tiny worm or a clothing fiber. Sometimes that glows also. I do want to find you guys a spider as my last mission here. What's that?
In the compost, maybe there might be something?
Might be.
Well, who's
There's a lightning bug.
Does anyone have any questions about setting up your own moth attracting system at home? Seems pretty simple.
So any white fabric will work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Sarah, did the guy say anything about specific fabrics?
No. He was using a lot of the white mesh laundry bags. I've heard of some people smearing like bait on their sheets, maybe bananas or deer. But I've never tried that.
Okay.
I mean, the white is just so that you can see them better, right? Or that also?
Yeah, I think.
Low, maybe.
Yes, I believe you're right, Darcy.
Oh, okay.
Well, if you do decide to try this at home, we would love to see any pictures of anything you find. But also, I think one of the fastest ways to figure out how to identify something, if you can't quite figure it out, is to put it on that inaturalist.org website that Joe shared earlier, because there's moth fanatics who help look through and help you figure out what it is. So we'd love to see something, or if you do find some things and put some pictures up there, that can help you figure out what you're looking at.
Mm.
Well, the spot that I thought I had a spider. Oh, here we go. If the spider's out, we should be able to see it. But it looks like it's hiding. Well, looks like you guys are gonna have to. Oh, there it is. Hey, and there's the biggest moth of the night.
Can you try to hold the camera still for a minute?
Yes, thank you. Okay, it's on the underside of that center there, but it's facing downward, so not being very cooperative.
Oh, a nice tip from Carrie. Another moth fanatic said that the light-colored walls on the Fun Barn, or Movies 10, on 33 is a spectacular place to find moths, especially the big ones after midnight, because they have those big outdoor like floodlights and things in those pale walls. That's a good tip.
Yeah, I mean, gas stations. We found a cool moth at the very beginning of Moth Week at our local post office. So yeah, anywhere that has those big lights on all the time, it's worth checking. Well, I think that's all I got here, Darcy.
Yeah, well, I think it's about the time I told people we'd finish up since it is a late night. Does anyone have any other questions or things they want to see before we?
Thank you for everything.
So glad you came.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Great, thanks.
Bye.
Sorry we didn't find anything more spectacular, but hopefully it'll be inspirational for your own mothing adventures.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys find.